remember recording myself for the first time, and before I even gave it to him, I listened to it myself. I was like, oh, that's the problem.
That's why I lost the sale.
Yeah.
David Price, he is the visionary CEO and founder of the Price Group, general life insurance as well. His system has enabled him to become one of the fastest millionaires in that industry within 3 years.
You have to talk to people. You can't learn how to sell without talking to people.
What do you feel holds most salespeople back from going out there and talking to prospects?
Fear.
And where does fear come from?
Uncertainty.
And where does a salesperson get uncertainty from? Lack of, I always say time is your biggest asset. And once it's gone, you can never buy it back.
So it's funny because I always say the difference between an insurance agent that's not successful and one that is successful is they stop believing their lies. But the problem is if you keep talking to the same people over again that aren't buying from you.
All right, Jeremy Miner, welcome to another episode of Closers or Losers. Listen, if you are a salesperson or an executive in leadership or sales manager or even an owner of a company and you want your teams to sell more, you want to sell more, you want to listen to what I'm about to drop with this guest. This gentleman's name, David Price. He is the visionary CEO and founder of the Price Group. It is a very large insurance agency that has achieved remarkable growth in the last few years. And since entering the industry in 2018, Mr. Price has, I would say, made a very profound impact, particularly in the field of final expense insurance, also with general life insurance as well. And his innovative approach, and we're going to talk about it, his system has enabled him to become one of the fastest millionaires in that industry within 3 years. That is remarkable, because you have to have sales skills, and we're going to talk about those sales skills. Now, under his leadership, the Price Group has flourished, producing over 15 million in sales just in 2024, helping more than 17,000 families and enabling numerous agents to achieve multiple six-figure incomes. We're going to talk about a system and how it's allowed anyone, regardless of prior experience, no experience, to earn a six-figure income with obviously putting in the work and mastering the craft, not dabbling, and dedication. David, how are you?
I'm great, man. How are you? I love the intro, man. Thank you.
Chilling like a villain, man. Just hanging out. All right. So you're all the way from Puerto Rico. So I've got some questions here that I wanted to ask you. I know our audience was going to ask you. And hey, everybody write down what he's about to throw down, because it doesn't matter what industry you sell. What I'm going to bring out of him is going to help you close more deals. Doesn't matter if you're in B2B, B2C, B2G, door to door. It's all the same. Okay. All right. So let's first talk about how all this got started. So what did you actually do before you got into the life insurance or final expense industry in 2018? What did you do before?
So actually my first commission job, usually I was always an employee, worked in the corporate world.
Yeah.
And I got a commission job repoing cars.
Really? Okay. Like a repo.
Like you didn't pay your note, I'm coming to pick your car
So
up.
you were driving around
In a tow truck.
And how many years did you do that for?
I did that for about a year.
Okay.
What happened, I was in Louisiana, repoing cars, and it had the Great Flood of 2016.
Okay.
A lot of people don't know about it because it wasn't an actual hurricane, but over 200,000 houses got flooded.
Wow.
And you're looking for people's cars, but the problem is their car just got flooded, so you're not going to find it.
Yeah.
And their house got flooded, so
Yeah.
the car's not where it's supposed to be.
That's
and
crazy.
I was commission only. So I was
So
like,
the
wow.
more cars you repo, the more you make.
Yeah, actually, I had a really good.
Gosh.
Yeah, 40% of what I make the company. So every car had a price on it.
Okay, interesting. What did you do before that? The car is it? I
So-
mean, like when you got an insurance, was that your first sales job, or were you in sales before in corporate America, or what'd you do?
No, so I've sold stuff on my own,
Okay.
but I've never been in any kind of organized sales before. So
Okay.
I'm brand new to the sales world, really.
Okay.
When I got my insurance license, that was it in 2018.
Well, let's talk about. I mean, what caused you to be like, hey, I'm repoing cars, and I'm going to switch over here, and I'm going to get my insurance license. I'm going to sell final expense insurance. Like, what caused that shift?
Yeah. So after the repoing cars, when all the houses were flooded, and I'm like, okay, I'm not going to find any cars. My income's about to disappear. I had to solve a new problem,
Mhm.
right? And the new problem was all these houses need to be rebuilt.
Yeah.
So I started knocking on doors and saying, hey, you want a free estimate? And started a construction company. Within our first 8 months, and I had no experience. I actually was fired from a job recently as a carpenter, right? I wasn't good at that, but I could get the
You
work.
weren't good with your hands, so the handyman, huh?
Yeah, not good with the hands, right? But I could get the work and I could get it done.
Join the crowd, baby. I can't even, I'm sure I could go to YouTube and figure out how to change the oil, but I'm always, I learned this at a very young age. I don't know who I learned it from. Maybe I saw it on the internet or something, but it's like, it's all the time you put into doing like all these chores. Like fixing up the bathroom, mowing the lawn, cutting the hedges. Now, some people like that to relax, and I think you should do that. But if you don't like that and you're spending half of your weekends doing that, you are actually losing money, because if you can pay somebody $20 an hour, and during that 4-hour stretch that you would be mowing your lawn and taking care of your garden, you paid somebody to do that. Imagine if you committed to mastering the craft of selling and you spent those same 4 hours doing that, like learning how to sell. Imagine how many more sales and how much more money you would make every single week, every single month. So there's always a cost of doing stuff that doesn't make you money, in my mind. What are your thoughts on that? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, I talk about that all the time, actually. If somebody goes, I saw someone going canoeing like on a Saturday or something, and she was getting a lot of negatives. Like, you're always looking for money and you're always broke, but you're going canoeing. And she's like, it didn't cost me any money.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, it cost you a whole Saturday.
Yeah.
Right.
It cost you didn't learn anything. You didn't master any skills, right? Now, hey, canoeing can be relaxing, right? And we're not saying like you shouldn't go out and relax and have fun, but instead of like working hard on your house for 8 hours on a Saturday and 6 hours a Sunday, you need to maybe relax some to clear your mind, right? And then maybe start committing to mastering the craft of sales and persuasion and influence if you want to really live the best life you can, okay? Rather than, trimming the hedges. Now, like I said, some people like to do that stuff and it relaxes you and you should go for it. But if, let's say my toilet breaks down and I'm sitting there trying to figure out how to fix it and redo the pipes for 4 hours, why not just hire somebody that can come in and do it in 45 minutes and pay them a couple $100? And at the same time, I'm spending that time either relaxing with my kids or my family or my girlfriend or whatever, or, going through training so I master the craft.
Yeah, I talk about it all the time. I mean, it's cost a fortune, right? For me to fix the toilet, it's going to cost me a fortune, right? Because they're always making more money, but they're not making more time.
Yeah.
And I think that's what happens. And the thing is, you start realizing that as you start getting better at making money, then you start realizing how important your time is.
Yeah. Right.
But like, I didn't used to understand that. So it's like harder for people to understand that sometimes.
Yeah.
It's like, learn how to make the money and use that other time, for something else.
So true, man. I always say time is your biggest asset.
Yeah.
And once it's gone, you can never buy it back. You can be Elon Musk and be worth whatever, 300 billion or whatever, but he can't buy more time. So once it's gone, you never get it back. So use your time wisely. Okay. So you get into final expense. How did it start going when you first got in?
Yeah, just like everything else, you thought it's going to be a lot easier than it was, right? I think the thing with sales, and I'm sure you deal with this all the time, right? Because you're the best sales trainer.
Is that what you say to every
sales
trainer?
That's what I said to everyone, right? But yeah, so people think because they can talk, they can sell.
Yeah.
Right. And just because you can
it's like
talk,
a myth.
Yeah, it doesn't mean like if I'm like, hey, can you speak Japanese? You're like, well, I can't speak Japanese, right? But if like, can you sell? Yeah, I could sell. I could talk, right? Or I had a sales job because I worked at cash register at an ice cream shop one time. So yeah, I thought it was gonna be a lot easier. And objections, didn't know how to deal with the objections, super uncomfortable, didn't feel comfortable. I was door knocking leads, right? So I was doing like the I was just showing up, hey, you filled this out. Right.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So you had like these, was it like a form they'd fill it out instead of you calling them, you were just knocking on the door. Yeah. Interesting. Tell us why you took that approach. I haven't seen that from a lot of agents, mainly calling, but tell us why you did that.
It's what I was taught. Okay. If I did it all over again, I would never have left my house and everything would have been on the phone. But it's just what I knew at the time. Right. So like, and I think that's the thing. People get so stuck in their truths. Yeah. And that was my truth. And that's what I taught. And I actually built a 7-figure agency doing that exact method.
It can work if you master the right skills. I mean, for sure, showing up on a door with the form that they filled out is actually a really good concept if you know the right questions to ask, you know how to disarm the prospect at the door, and you know immediately how to start framing them out of how much is this going to cost, like price or cost-based thinking, into why did they even fill out the form, the end result, which for final expense is protecting their loved ones they leave behind from having to shell out thousands of dollars for a funeral, right? For being cremated or, a burial and all those expenses that go through it. Because a lot of times they leave family members behind that don't have $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, and they have to go out and get a loan for that. They have to pay all that interest. And the family they leave behind, usually they pass away unexpectedly, is kind of left in a financial hole. So what you're doing is a really good, you're solving some major problems for families.
Yeah, I mean, I went through it myself. I mean, I had to do a GoFundMe when my father passed away.
Tell us about that. Is that did that cause you to get into the field, or what caused you to get into final expense?
Yeah, so actually, I was in the field. So I got my license in May. My father passed away in July.
Really? Okay.
So it was before I was making any money. I didn't really have
Yeah.
any money yet.
Mhm.
Still learning. Felt like I was, getting paid like I work at McDonald's. I would have made more at McDonald's for the hours I was putting in.
Right.
But yeah, my father was supposed to meet with me for insurance.
Yeah.
And he canceled, right? Just like any good client does,
Yeah.
good prospect does.
Yeah.
And a week later, he passed.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like, especially, I mean, it's in any industry, but especially yours. Like, this is what I always say to salespeople. Like, there's 4 types of salespeople. There's one type of salesperson. They're the wingers. I call the wingers, right? They wing everything. Every prospect they talk to, they say something different. They show them something different. They don't really know what they're doing well, what they're doing wrong. And those are the ones that just kind of hope and pray it works out. Like, God's going to give them a miracle, right? I just hope and pray I'm going to make more sales. And they get to a point where they just kind of struggle, and they're like, well, if I just keep doing this, eventually I'll figure it out, right? And they always blame the leads. They always blame the prospects. Prospects are always broke. Prospects have a bad mindset instead of blaming themselves. And where do most of those salespeople go? They usually get fired or they leave the industry, right? Then the second group, you have the dabblers, right? They're the ones that buy a few sales books every year. They attend a free event. They watch some basic free content on Instagram, like 60-second reels or YouTube videos. And they're the ones like, hey, if I just stay in, if I get more reps, like eventually I'll learn how to do this. And those salespeople, it takes years to decades to even get halfway good. Most salespeople are in that dabbling range, right? They're dabblers, right? Those are average salespeople. If they ever get halfway decently good, it's because they have to play the numbers game and they work their butts off and eventually they burn out. That's the dabblers. The third type of salesperson, you have what I call the know-it-allers, right? They get up to 6 figures, maybe multiple 6 figures. They think they've got it all figured out. They stop investing in their skill level. They stop training because they have big egos now that they're doing decent, and their income gets capped. And then the fourth, those salespeople are committed to mastery like you. They invest major funding into their skill level because they know the number one thing that's going to determine their success is what? Their sales ability, their skill level, what they learn. So they want their speed to lead. Like, they don't want to have a 3-year learning curve. They want to have success like next month, right now. And so their learning curve is 100x faster than they get over it. And that's your top 1% of salespeople. And that's the same thing in life. Think about every professional athlete. Were they a winger, dabbler, know-it-all, or were they committed to mastery? Committed to mastery. Think about every successful CEO. Dabbler, know-it-all, or committed to mastery. Top neurosurgeons, doctors, attorneys. I could go on and on and on, all committed to mastery. The same is true in sales. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, you're 100% right. And I was talking to my team this morning. I had a little kickoff meeting, and that's what I said. I was like, you can't wake up and say you want to be excellent tomorrow. Right? You can't just, I'm going to be excellent. I'm just going to be the best salesperson ever. You just can't wake up and do that.
Sounds good.
It does. But you could wake up and say, I'm committed, right? You could sit there and be more consistent, right? You could say, today, I'm just going to be consistent. I'm going to do what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
So I think it's super important to learn the skills, right? Focus on the skills and understand there is going to be a learning curve, and you can make it as short as you want to make it.
You commit to mastery and you get the right training from the right people, the right skills. Your learning curve is like quick.
Yeah.
Try to figure it out on your own with some basic content or some books. You know how long it can take.
First 75% of my life, I tried figuring it out on my own.
Years or decades.
That's it.
Yeah. Imagine if you had tried to, let's say 20 years ago, committed to mastery and figured out persuasion and influence and got the right training and put funding into it. Where would you be now?
Cost me millions of dollars not doing that.
I've lost opportunity. And I think a lot of salespeople just don't realize that. They're like, well, I'm going to watch a podcast, or I'm going to listen to a podcast. I'm going to watch some basic YouTube videos, which is just basic content, right? It's not advanced content. You're not going to give that out for free. And they think that they're going to figure it out. And then they wonder why they're never where they want to be, is because they haven't switched on that gear to say, I'm not going to be a dabbler anymore. I'm committed to mastering this. And the ones who are committed to mastery, those are the ones that get in the top 1% or higher, 100%. Okay, let's talk about the sales system. you got this, you put in this system. Tell us the system that you put in that really helped your agents start seeing results quicker than most agents would actually get in your industry.
Yeah, so a lot of times agents in industry, they wing it. They don't have mentorship, or the person that's mentoring them isn't really successful, right? That's
I always say, like, who are you learning from?
Yeah.
How do you expect to get big results if you're learning from somebody that doesn't have the results you want?
Yeah. So that's a big one. So I make sure that my agents are getting mentored by somebody who's a six-figure earner, right? So it's going to be someone at a high level.
Okay.
The other thing is, you have to talk to people.
Yeah.
Like you can't learn how to sell without talking to people.
What do you feel holds most salespeople back from going out there and talking to prospects?
Fear.
And where does fear come from?
Their mind.
Uncertainty. And where does a salesperson get uncertainty from? Lack of
skills.
Lack of skills.
Yeah.
It's the same. I always go back to every industry. If I'm a neurosurgeon, and let's say somehow I cheated my way through medical school and didn't really learn the skills, what's my confidence level going to be like when I go and do my first brain surgery? Pretty dang low, because I don't have the skill level. I didn't master the skill level, right? However, if I put in money to my skill level and I'm trained by the right person, like you say, my skill level, my confidence level is going to be out the roof because I have confidence because of my skill level. I know what I'm doing. So when the prospect throws out an objection, I immediately know how to deframe it, reframe it, and frame them into a new way of thinking where the objection's gone. But I have the skill level to do that. So I raise my confidence. If I don't learn those skills, I don't have much confidence. And that's why they don't want to talk to people.
Yeah, that's where they have the fear.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like dating, right? Why does a guy or a gal, let's say they get divorced, why do they now go out in the world and start talking with people to date? What holds them back? Fear, because they lack the skill level. They don't know what to say. They don't know what to ask. It really comes back. Like I always say, your quality of your life is your communication. That's it. Communication, persuasion, influence. Like if we don't master that skill, look at where we set, right? Like Elon Musk, was he the first person that ever had the concept of the electrical car? No, he was just the best at communicating his vision. And that's why he's Elon Musk. Jeffrey Bezos, was he the first person that had the concept of what Amazon is? Unlikely. He was just much better at communicating that vision to investors, and therefore he got funding and he was able to scale. Or the other people who might have had that idea but had a fear because they didn't know how to communicate it. It all comes back down to how you communicate. Now, I'm doing all the talking here, David. I can let you do all the talking here. This show's for you. Okay, I saw you posted a tweet that went viral saying you struggled for 6 years, then suddenly in 1 month you achieved more in success than your first 6 years. That is remarkable. What went on in your mind to keep persevering even when you weren't seeing the returns that you wanted to have from what you're doing?
Yeah, so again, just realizing that you have to put the work in, realizing that, there's, sales is funny because in the beginning, it's like I said, I remember doing some math and be like, man, I'll be making more money if I'm working at McDonald's, right? Because I lacked the skill, right? I lacked the confidence. I was fear, I didn't feel like I was really helping people, right? So there's just a lot of like disconnect going on. But then all of a sudden, once you have the skill level, right? All of a sudden when you feel confident, right? Then also you flow too. It's not even hard, right? You flow, and then it's not work anymore, right? Now it's just simple. So basically that was it. It was just like the compound of all my work, hours, right? Putting a lot of hours, a lot of mastery.
6 years.
Yeah.
What happened in that 1 month? Like what clicked for you in that 1 month where you're just like, I figured it out. Like something hit, you stopped taking the blue pill, you took the red pill, and like, bam, like what happened?
I mean, it's again, just a combination of, I have a large sales team, right? So it's just a lot of people doing the right thing, people clicking for a lot of people at the same time. Getting people committed on taking leads, right? Leads is a big thing because you need to talk to people, right? We don't want to just cold call people. I mean, obviously people make a living like that, but now with digital marketing and stuff like that, there's no reason to cold call people.
It's so easy to get leads. Like literally you could hold up the phone to your Instagram account and start creating value and educating the audience, not even really doing many CTAs, and you get leads that will private message you asking like, hey, maybe I should look into this. It's all how you frame it. It's how you communicate it, right? How did you, obviously you must be really good at training your people, because in your space, for you to make a lot of money, it's not just personal sales, it's the team you build underneath you and how good you get them at selling, because you get paid off some of those sales. So how did you build out a system where your people could actually, not just you would have success, but you taught people how to have success?
Yeah. So my goal, we were talking about a little bit earlier. So when I got my insurance license, I wanted to build a business.
Yeah.
My goal wasn't to be the top salesperson.
Yeah.
It was to build a business that was giving me the freedom to live wherever I want, do whatever I want. So that was always the focus. So it was about, once I started getting agents, I was putting a lot of effort into them, helping them build the confidence, helping them with the skill set, making sure that they were getting new leads every week.
Would you have, can you break that down for everybody? Because we have a lot of sales managers and executives on here as well that's probably watching or listening to the show. Like, was it like daily meetings, weekly meetings? Like, how did you do that? Could you break that down specifically?
Yeah. So in the beginning, I was on the phone with my agents all the time, right? Okay. So like, we weren't really using Zoom at the time.
Okay.
But yeah, I was talking to them before sales calls. I was talking to after sales calls. I was having them record their sales calls. I was listening.
Would you have like more one-on-one meetings, or were you doing like small group meetings?
I was doing a lot of one-on-one. I had a small team in the beginning, right?
Okay,
you're talking about the first days. Now it's all group meetings now, right? Yeah. But back then it was simple, right? To talk to all my agents every day, and then talk to them all before every sales call, after sales calls, listen to the recordings.
Let's go back. Why is listening to recordings? So if you're a sales manager or maybe a VP of sales or a business owner, chief sales officer, why is it so valuable to listen to the recordings of your salespeople?
That's the only time you could really hear what's actually going on,
right?
They're going to tell you what's going on. But the thing is, I remember recording myself for the first time, and I was giving it to someone to listen.
Yeah.
And before I even gave it to him, I listened to it myself. I was like, oh, that's the problem.
That's why I lost the sale.
Yeah. And you don't realize it when you're going through it. And again, it's just being a student, right?
Yeah.
Striving for mastery, recording yourself and then listening to yourself afterwards. It blew my mind how much of a difference it made.
It's like Tom Brady. What was one of the biggest reasons why he was so much more successful than other quarterbacks? It wasn't necessarily because he was the most athletic.
He was listening to his
quarterbacks were much faster and agile, but he would watch he would watch the game film over and over and over, and he would get so good at, oh, this is why I threw that interception, because my front foot, my toe was angled 3 inches over here. I've got to plant it more 3 inches over here. So he focused on all these techniques, and he had a coach that would break down the film with him, right? And show him things maybe that he didn't see. I always say the biggest problem in sales is the problems that you don't know you have.
Right.
Because if you don't know what your problems are, because you're not an expert yet, you haven't mastered it, how do you know what to change? A lot of salespeople might start changing stuff that they thought they were doing wrong, where actually they're doing that right, but they changed it and then they get even worse. So it's like when we do call reviews with our clients, we're breaking down what they do well so they know what to keep doing. And then we show them what to tweak. We're like, oh, did you see where, because you sounded a little bit timid right here when you ended that frame, how they actually, like, the sales resistance came up and they're like, yeah, sure, we can talk about it. And you see how you triggered that sales resistance, and then they just stayed surface level the rest of the call. Like, oh my gosh, I've been doing this on all my calls. That's where I'm losing the deals. And they make that one tweak, and now they don't lose that deal. Call reviews are so important.
Yeah. And another thing is, if you have a good lead system, an agent could really, if they're a hard worker, they can make it on laydowns.
Yeah.
Right. They could pay their bills. They could cover lead costs and make a little bit of money on laydowns.
Dabblers. Yeah. The dabblers.
And that's the thing. They're not trying to level up. They're not,
not committed to mastery.
Yeah. Not committed to mastery.
Yowzers. Now, how have you helped? Because you've got a lot of people on your team making multiple six figures or higher. So it sounds like those people are more committed to mastery maybe than others. What do you think you've done with those people to get them into the right frame to think like, hey, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to be committed to mastering this craft, because my sales ability is going to determine how many families I can help?
I think just with anything else, it's some people you're able to show them the vision
Mhm.
of where they can go if they can commit to mastery, and
Yeah.
then some people I don't know, like we talk and everything goes real well,
Yeah.
and then they just don't show up.
Sounds like they have some patterns
Yeah.
some behavioral patterns we got to break. Maybe invite them to the challenge tonight. We'll help them break those patterns that hold them back from helping more people. Because, I think you said your spouse was watching last night challenge. One thing we focused on is selling something you do to people, or is selling something you do for people.
Right.
It's a big psychological difference in that, because a lot of salespeople think it's something you do to people. Right? You do it, you got to close them, you got to manipulate them, do whatever you can to drive them across the finish line so you can make money. And those salespeople really never master the craft, simply because they feel like it's something that is. So when a salesperson tries to sell them, they throw out all these objections, but then they don't understand that when they're trying to close somebody and they get those objections, they start fighting and get defensive, and they don't understand that. I always say you are the objection you give. So if you consistently say, hey, I need to think it over all the time to a salesperson who's selling you to solve your problems, and then you start getting that objection all the time from prospects, it's going to be really hard for you to help them overcome that, because you've already bought into that story. You believe that selling something that is being done to you, like it's a bad thing. So when you try to close, you have anxiety and your nervous system gets rattled because you feel it's something that is bad, because you feel like it's something you do to people. If you have the mindset that it's something you do for people, right? It is what you do for people, because like your dad.
Yep.
Imagine if he would have bought that policy, what would have happened to the family he left behind, right? So you're doing it for him, not to him.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And I know that's a really personal subject here. So when you have the mindset of, hey, I'm doing this for them, like if I don't master selling, how many families am I letting down?
Right.
And it's a big shift.
Yeah. I mean, just one family. I mean, people, it's a huge deal.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take a lot to get back your investment.
Yeah.
When you invest in yourself, like it's a no-brainer. It really is. And I think people, they look at the number, like, if I'm going to pay for a sales training program, right?
Yeah.
I think you happen to sell sales training, right?
Yeah.
So if the sales training, they're looking at that number and whatever the price is, and they're thinking about like just now. And it's like, all right, whatever the cost of that sales training program is, like how many years you have.
Well, how much money are you losing every day because you keep losing sales? Like when you tally that up, the investment probably gets paid back in a week. Yeah. Maybe less. I mean, that's what our clients say, especially in your industry. Like, oh my gosh, I got my investment back in like 4 days. Yeah. I've sold more in 4 days than I've sold in 4 weeks. Yeah. It's a big difference, because, this is an intention. I call this an intention frame. But, if a prospect ever says, so let's say you get to the end of a call, final expense, right? And they say like, oh, this is just, I don't have enough money. Like, this is the last money I have, or whatever. They say something like that. Well, what you want to do is you want to frame that and say, well, I'm sure your intention is not just to hold on to that monthly money and just hope it just stays in your account forever, right? I'm sure your real intention is to really like never have to worry about your family that you're leaving behind because they're financially protected, right? So your real intention is this. So I'm taking them out of the frame of I can't afford it or the cost into the frame of the end result. My real intention is to make sure that my family doesn't have to worry about all this money they're going to have to pay for me when I pass. And so you take them into that mindset of the end result of what you sell, which is, financial protection for the daughter, the son, maybe the wife or the husband they're leaving behind. So now they don't have to go out and get a loan and have to pay all that interest to pay it off. Now they don't have to, cremate them because they can't afford a really, more of a burial and those type of things because they didn't have the money. There's different things. So it's like I'm taking them out of that price or cost-based thinking into results-based thinking. It's a huge shift once people start to master framing, for sure. Okay, I've got a lot of questions here. We're going to dive into some tactics. So make sure you listen to this. And hey, if you have questions like, hey, how do I do this for my industry? The easiest way to get a hold of me is simply to text me. So that number is 480-637-2944. And you can text me any question you have. Me and 2 sales trainers lock ourselves into a conference room about an hour a day, and we just answer questions. So if you have questions about how do I sell this, how do I sell that, just text us and we'll get back to you on that. Okay, let's get back to the training. Okay. Now, what is your favorite call opener to sell life insurance? People wanted me to ask you that.
What my favorite call
Yeah,
opener
what's your
is?
call opener for life insurance or final expense? You call an age lead, you call maybe a lead that responds to an ad. What's something that you teach your team to say?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing is, calling them, identifying yourself.
Yeah.
I'm so-and-so with US Burial.
Yeah.
You filled this, or you usually it's gonna be a digital lead at this point.
Yeah.
You're on Facebook.
Yeah. You asked us to call you back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, what was it that you're looking for? Were you looking for this for yourself or for a loved one, right? Trying to figure out,
Yeah.
Obviously it's probably going to be for themselves, but
Yeah.
let them tell you that it's going to be for themselves.
What type of tone? So what I did is I printed off scripting for your industry, because we have scripts for every industry at this point. We're probably one of the only sales training companies in the world that trains industry specific for every vertical, every industry there is now. We've gotten fairly decent at this over the last 5-6 years. It's really about interrupting their pattern, right? Because what do most final expense agents or life insurance typically start off the call with? Hi, is blank there? My name is, David Price. I'm with XYZ company. Getting back to you, filled out a form about insurance options. You have a few minutes to talk, or they just go into something, and it kind of all sounds the same.
A lot of open-ended questions there.
Yeah,
though. It's
the
dangerous
prospect's brain. So we have to interrupt the pattern. So it's about how good you are at mastering your tonality, because your tone is how they interpret why you're calling. Because if I start off with, hi, I'm with XYZ company. The reason why I'm calling you was I sound monotone and I sound more like a
salesperson,
or like a telemarketer.
Yeah.
So instantly,
caller.
Yeah, instantly what goes on the prospect, salesperson trying to sell me something. And that's why they say, oh, we don't need that. Oh, not interested. Oh, we already took care of that. And they don't even know what you're selling. Yet they're the one that filled out the form. So if they filled out the form, that means that they kind of raise their hand saying, hey, help. I've got some type of problem. I don't really know a lot about it, but I need some help. Otherwise, they would have never filled out the form. Right? So a lot of salespeople don't think about that. So it's starting out with, is John there? Yeah, John. Hey, it's David. David Price with XYZ Barrow. You asked us to call you back. You filled out the form this morning on Facebook about looking at some different insurance options for when you pass. Were you looking for anything specific, or just kind of wanting to look at all the different options? The reason why we would say, were you looking at anything for specific or just wanting to look at the options, is because typically most prospects say, oh, I just want to look at the options. And I want them to get into that frame. I want to kind of give that to them, because that's typically an objection. Like, well, what are the options when you first call? So instead, I'm going to ask them that. So I reduce that resistance by putting it in the question. See what we're doing there?
Yes.
So it's that familiar tone in the beginning. Like, it's David Price. You asked us to call you back. You filled out the form. See, now what's going on in their brain? I'm using a familiar tone, and now they're thinking, who's David Price?
David? I'm supposed to know who David is.
It sounds familiar. So all you're doing is you interrupted their pattern. They're not used to that, but it's that verbal pause. It's David Price with XYZ. So I'm pacing that question out, and because my tone sounds familiar, their guard starts to go down. They would never say, who is this? Or I'm not interested, because all I'm doing is interrupting the pattern to buy more time. Pattern interrupting. Okay. I want to go into this a lot more detailed. And this is for an industry. Now, if you want to learn pattern interrupting, like I said, text me at that number. We'll show you how to do that. When you're selling life insurance, because now you're focused on general life insurance, which I think is a great move, by the way. Okay. Yeah. What is your strategy on talking about how to bring up sensitive topics with them about them dying and having financial security? How do you do that?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing is, trying to figure out why did they fill the information out, right? You're on Facebook, you fill this information, what was on your mind when you're doing that, and some people will give you an answer. Some people are gonna avoid it a little bit.
Do you know what question that your reps ask that to try to find that information out? Like do you have that question? Like, this is the question they ask.
What caused you to fill out? What caused you to go online and give us your information, or what caused you to fill out this lead?
Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah. And typically it's how they ask it, right? Because have you ever wondered, and watching at home here, have you ever wondered why salespeople in the same industry selling the same thing with the same price points to the same type of prospects using the same script get completely different results?
The tone.
It's how they're asking the
Mhm.
questions. It's how they're saying the words, not just the words themselves, right? The nonverbal. That's what separates it apart,
Right.
right? So it's how you ask it. So hey, when you saw, now how did they find the form for you guys? Like, I don't know the context.
Yeah. So typically we're going to run some kind of digital ad, right?
Yeah.
So it's going to be Facebook or something like that. So they're on Facebook.
Do they see somebody talking, or what would they see?
They'll see a graphic,
Okay.
a graphic about life insurance.
So they read something.
Yeah, they're reading something.
Hey, so when you were reading that ad, what was it that they were kind of going over that caused you to be like, hey, maybe I should look into this further? See how the frame is different. We teach a lot of this with final expense and life insurance, and like, wow, like I get a way different like answer, but it's because they're verbal pacing it out. Like, hey, so when you in my tone, right? I'm more concerned here, especially when you're talking about sensitive subjects like passing away, who you're leaving behind. It's like we have to go down to that concern tone, the tone that shows empathy. One thing I find, and I want to get your advice on this, because when a lot of like life insurance agents come to us, or final expense, or really any type of salesperson or company comes to us, especially in life insurance, they'll be like, my dad died, 3 months ago. And the agent will be like, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. Now, let me ask you.
Yeah.
And they go to that next question. Why is that such a bad thing to do?
Yeah. I mean, it shows you don't care.
Yeah.
I mean, and yeah, I don't know how someone does that, right? But I guess
Most do.
It's fear. It's
95%. They're just following the script.
Yeah, they don't even know how to address it, and they're not
Yeah.
listening, right? So
Yeah.
I think that's another thing. Like a lot of salespeople, they just don't listen.
Mm.
So that was me. So when I listened to the recording of myself, I was just talking.
There's no emotional connection.
Yeah, I'm not listening to the guy. I'm so busy telling him what I'm trying to do, and I'm not listening to what he wants.
Yeah.
Right.
Which triggers resistance.
Yeah. And that's what's happening with that. I just lost my, my mother just passed away 2 weeks ago. Like, oh, I'm so sorry. So it's like you're not
to
listening.
them, they're like, they don't even care, and it's over pretty much at
Yeah.
that point, because you're not even listening. Even if they buy, it's probably going to be a chargeback, or they're not going to last.
They're just
that
being
long.
polite at that point if they're staying on the phone.
Yeah, if they stay on the phone, exactly. So if they ever, like, I'll give everybody at home something. I was at a Tony Robbins event about a month ago, Date with Destiny. It's the first event I'd ever been of his, and I've always been a fan. I've seen him speak at keynotes. In fact, there's a keynotes, a few speaking engagements I've spoken at. We just spoke on different days, so I've never met him, but I really have always loved his stuff. And I went to the 6-day event that he had, and just marvelous. I'd always suggest anybody, you want to change your life, change your patterns, go to a Tony Robbins event. It'll change your life. I don't care what level of success you're at. There was a few billionaires there.
Mhm.
Okay. So if they're there, you
Right.
might want to get there too, everybody. Okay. And he said something that was profound, and I could be butchering it, but he said the way to influence another person, and this is just in general, could be if you're on a sales call, or if you're wanting to influence your kids or a neighbor, it doesn't really matter. The quickest way to influence a person is to emotionally connect with that person and go there first, where they feel like you understand them. They feel like you understand their needs, their wants, their desires, even their fears, without buying into their story. Now, that is a big difference of what I mean there. So they have to feel like I understand them, like, deeply, not just on a surface level. And I see a lot of agents in your industry that they just go through the script, and it's all surface level.
Mhm.
It's like, why are you looking for insurance? Oh, my dad died. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. And then they go to the next thing on the script, and like, oh, and so instead we're like, oh, geez, you sound so young. Like, what happened to your dad? Now my tone shifts down to that soft, concerned tone, empathy. Oh, my dad had a heart attack. Oh my gosh. So when he had the heart attack, what actually happened? Okay, he went, and they start telling a little bit. They start telling a little bit. They start emotionally connecting right there. And I'm doing that because I'm helping them. I'm not doing that to them. I'm doing it for them, because the two biggest emotional drivers that causes a human being to want to change are pain and a fear of continuous or future pain. So I can take them back to that pain that they had of the relative that passed away. And then I might say, so when they passed away, like, did they have like life insurance to like financially protect their spouse, or what actually happened? No, they didn't. Oh, okay. And what actually happened with the spouse that they left behind? Oh, she had to move out. The kids had to move out. We had to get a GoFundMe page. And now I'm getting them to relive their pain. That drives them to want to change. If I don't do that, I'm not helping them.
Mm-hmm.
Tony said, if you can't learn how to master emotionally connecting with that human being and go there first without buying into their story, you offer them no value. You did nothing to help them. See, selling is something you do for them. So what do I mean by not buying into their story? So when they say like, oh, I'll get back to you next month, it's a better time. Oh, okay. You just bought into their story. Oh, I don't have the necessary funds. Oh, okay. You're buying into their story. That doesn't help them.
Right.
Yeah. How did you learn how to have that unique balance? Because you wouldn't be sitting where you are right now if you didn't learn how to emotionally connect with your prospects and your team without buying into their story. How did you learn how to do that? It's a very unique balance that people have to be taught, not something they just have.
Yeah. So it's funny because I always say the difference between an insurance agent that's not successful and one that is successful is they stop believing their lies, right? Which
they buy the story.
Buying the story. And I did that too in the beginning, right? Same thing. It's, I'll come back next week, right? So I came back next week a bunch of times, and I learned the hard way. And then I started realizing like, okay, cool, these people aren't buying. Then what I realized too is I enjoyed going back next week because I knew what that conversation was going to be like, right? There's no fear anymore, but knocking on a new door, there was some fear, right? Because I didn't have the skill level.
So you had this possibility and hope you might make this sale, but in reality, eventually, most of the time, it never really happens.
Because salespeople would rather keep talking to the same people over and over again, right? Because they already know that they're comfortable with that person at a level versus someone new. But the problem is if you keep talking to the same people over again that aren't buying from you, you're not going to sell anything.
You're just buying into their story.
Yes.
You're not helping them 100%. This is really good. What about, I see a lot of salespeople in your industry that say, well, what type of policy would you want to have if like, God forbid, something happened to you and you passed away? And I always say like, with life insurance, it's not if, it's just when.
Mm-hmm.
So why not relanguage that to what type of policy are you hoping to put in place so when you pass away, sending the kids don't have to sell the house and be forced to move out of the school district when you pass away? How do you gradually move that into the conversation where they feel comfortable with that?
Yeah. So I used to say something similar, and then I actually changed it a little bit. Jeremy, if you didn't wake up today, what policy would have been best to have in place to take care of everything that needs to be getting taken care of today, right now?
Yeah. When you made that shift, I like that question because you're getting them to future pace, like visualize them dying, which is reliving pain, seeing their family left behind with maybe nothing or something. What started to shift with your prospects?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely makes a difference. But again, you can't just say it.
Yeah, you can't say that. It's not your first question you're asking. You have to build up to that, right? And you have to build a gap for them to be open enough to start telling you that. Because if I say that question too early without building any pain, they know where that question leads and they'll get surface level with you.
Yeah. I mean, and then it's a phone call too. So it's so easy for someone to hang up on you, right? So it's not like face-to-face sales where, face-to-face sales, I'm in your house. Like you got to call the police for me to leave, basically, right?
I love that.
But on the phone, it's just they're just going to hang up on you. So you got to build rapport. You got to really connect with them emotionally. You got to really let them know that you know what you're doing too, right? Be a professional. And then really find what the need is, right? And get to understand that. And then later on in the call, that's when you can hit those harder questions.
What's behind them even looking? What are the consequences when they pass away if their family's not financially protected? So even we call it a problem awareness question might be if I'm selling life insurance and I find out they have a $60,000 work policy. That's what they have. Okay. So you've already got the $60,000 work policy. I mean, what's caused you to feel like that's not going to be enough for sending the kids when you pass? Well, that's good, but, and then they start telling you and they defend themselves on why that's not going to be enough. Yeah. And now they're telling themselves why they need to change, not you telling them why that's not enough. Because when you tell them why that's not enough, one ear, out the other, because they know you're biased, you're the salesperson. Mm-hmm. But if I get them to start telling themselves why what they have is not enough, they're persuading themselves.
Absolutely.
See the difference? That is a big game changer. You've obviously learned how to do that. You wouldn't be as successful if you hadn't. Why do you feel that life insurance salespeople, even final expense salespeople, get such a bad reputation? Because they're really doing a good service.
Yeah. I think the barrier of entry is really low. I mean, anyone can take a 20-hour course. Some states are 40-hour course to get your insurance license. And so now you have a lot of people that do it with a low barrier of entry. And I think, I don't know, maybe they get too focused on the money, and they don't realize that if you really focus on helping people, you're going to make a ton of money, right? So for me, I've made great money in this business, and like I've done it just doing the right thing. And I've seen a lot of people that have a lot of skills and have everything they need, but they just want to shortcut it, and they don't make the right decisions all the time. And I mentor them all the time. I'm like, listen, just do the right thing. Like I'm telling you, it's gonna pay off.
They don't emotionally connect with the prospect. They try to force them into it. It's something they believe that they're doing to them instead of for them.
Yeah, they're like rushing it. Like it's, I guess we're so lead heavy too. It's like you want to get to the next lead. It sounds like
it's like a numbers game, right? Just call more leads.
I know you love numbers games.
I know the numbers game. I'm just like, why do you want to play the numbers game when you can master sales? And instead of having to talk to 20 people to make a sale, you can actually talk to 2 people, make a sale every 2 people you talk to. It sounds like you'd work a lot less and make 10 times more money, and you get to help. See, that's saying you get to help more people. Because think about all the families, because you haven't committed to mastering the skills. Think of all the families you've let down because you didn't know how to get them to let their guard down. You didn't know how to disarm them. You didn't know how to prevent objections from happening in their mind, and you didn't know the right questions to help them feel that pain and have a future fear of pain. And that's why they didn't buy from you. It's not like they're not going to pass away.
Right.
But now you left them with really nothing. And we teach our agents, and companies like, hey, whose responsibility is that? The prospects are yours. It's yours. You're responsible for them getting that policy. You're the one responsible if you haven't mastered how to communicate. You're the ones letting the prospects down because they don't know what you know. You just haven't mastered how to communicate and frame your message the right way. And if you master that, it's not just about the money. It's about all the families you're protecting. Think about all these families you protected, and you find out a year or 2 later, one of them passes away, but because you sold them that policy, because selling something is for them, their family didn't have to worry about money again. How good of a feeling is that?
Right.
On the flip side, someone who passes away, you didn't sell to them. It's like you're like letting them down. And I always, like when I was in sales, I didn't sell life insurance. So I was in different industries, but I always felt like, hey, that's my fault. What did I do wrong? Mm-hmm. What did I not say? What did I not ask that caused them to not want to buy, even though they had problems I could solve? And when you start to look at sales in a different manner and you start to commit to mastering the skills, the whole ballgame can change. David, any last words of advice you would give for someone in your industry or any industry about just getting to the next level and persevering? Because obviously you've done that. You've done that well.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I learned is if you keep doing the same thing, you're going to get the same results, right? It's real simple. So, it's easy, right? To get comfortable on when you're making money that you've never made before, whether that's $100,000 because you've never made that, whether it's multi 6 figures, whether it's 7 figures, it's easy. So what I do is I purposely make myself do different things, right? To just figure out different ways to, more skill, more connection, whatever it is. And don't just sit there and don't do the same thing you're going to keep doing and expect different results. If you want to get to that next level, you have to find something else, and you have to get uncomfortable.
Yeah. God feeds the birds, but he doesn't drop worms in their nest.
Yes.
You got to do something, baby. He's not going to wait around for the miracle. You got to go out and do it. Man, I really enjoyed this conversation. Our president of the company, Sean Pollard, knows you and wanted me to have you on here. And he said a lot of good things about you. So you must have had some type for him to say something good about it. And he's a great guy, but he doesn't just say great things about every person. So there's something special you have. How can people learn more about what you do? Maybe they're in life insurance or general life and they're looking for a change, or maybe they're in a different industry and they want to look into, maybe joining your team or learning about your industry, maybe selling for you. How can they learn about you, what you do?
Yeah, they could go to my Instagram, David Price Official, my website, tpglife.com.
Okay.
And find me on YouTube too, David Price Official.
Okay.
And try to post as much
Should they
content
just
as I
message
can.
you there?
Yeah, they could just send me a message.
Okay. All right. So go there. Look, if you're in final expense life insurance, you've got questions for David. Maybe you're looking for a change, or maybe you sell something. You're like, hey, I want to look at some different industries. This guy's legit. He's an amazing mentor. I can assure you of that. If Sean vouches for you, my president of the company, because I trust Sean like he's like my chief of staff. He is my right-hand man. Then yeah, you're good, man. So go to his website, follow him on Instagram or YouTube, reach out and message it to him. Really appreciate you on here. If you have questions about anything sales related, like I said, best way to reach me is just to text me at the number 480-637-2944. You're welcome to ask any questions about selling. David, thanks for being on, my man.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Till next time, we'll see you soon.